Hello guys, Waterlord here and welcome to another video. Today's one is a little special. This is basically a tournament recap. It ended on the 23rd of August, so this is over a week ago. But I still want to go over the tournament and give my thoughts on how it went for me and the deck that I brought. And we'll start with the deck I brought because it's in front of me right now, and it is Midrange Sea Serpent. Now, Midrange Sea Serpent is maybe my favorite deck of the format. It's really fun to pilot, and the new tools from TB14 really gave it a breath of fresh air. To summarize the problem that I had with the deck previously before TB14, it was a slower deck. Now, that was fine during XQD format, which I believe this deck to be the second best deck of the format, but we didn't really have much data to cover that. But regardless, Midrange Sea Serpent is a deck aiming to use the just general card quality that you have access to outvalue your opponent. And you have cards like Abysslayer Apsaras, the Abyssal Dragon Lord Poseidra left, and some lesser pieces like the Kraken left, and Pureglass Spears is a pretty good card, but is kind of piece reliant. But before Pureglass Spears existed, you were trying to pop your opponent's monster, shuffle your cards back into your deck, and just have really powerful turns consistently. That was the main goal of the deck. But when the meta shifted during TB13, when Wonder Fusion came out, you had to be able to keep pace, and you had to be able to be either as explosive as Wonder Fusion, or be disruptive enough to keep Wonder Fusion off their game plan. And Midrange Sea Serpent was trying to do the latter. It had Grand Extreme, which is one of, if not the best graveyard hate tools in the format, and it was also trying to keep trying to keep pace with the faster decks by using the Grand Extreme plus Pureglass line to deal a lot of damage in a single turn. But the deck was still not as fast as a deck like Wonder Fusion or even Pureglass Arrow, which was supposedly a good deck. But regardless, despite the fact that you have a lot of graveyard hate you have access to, like the Grand Extreme or Sea Star Trooper, your word working, sometimes the Wonder Fusion player just finds the pieces anyway and obliterates you, and you don't have a way of preventing that sack from happening. If you get unlucky, you get unlucky. That's it. That's the end of the game. Which was the main issue of the deck in my opinion. It was just too consistent, or rather it was too consistently average is the best way to put it. However, with the introduction of KB14, we got some new tools. We'll talk about the less important tools first. Firstly, Abysskite Ange. This is a small wave of cards intended to be synergized with Oki Abyss, but Oki Abyss is still really bad, so we're just playing it here instead. It has an effect that you can add a level 10 Sea Serpent with 2500 attack or an Automail from your graveyard to your hand, but both of those cards are terrible. So we are just using it for the first effect, which you can discard a Sea Serpent from your hand to draw one card. It's a Mystic Dealer with technically less stats than other Mystic Dealers, but it is still a Mystic Dealer, and alongside our other consistency tools like Abysslayer Vodyanoy and the Deepsea Dragon Bat Eel, it is just a very welcome addition to allow this deck to just draw through its deck and just keep finding its actually good cards. We also got Abysskite Liem, which is graveyard hate. More graveyard hate is pretty nice. You can discard a 0 defense monster of your hand to the grave. Technically you can discard any type of monster, but this deck wants to play a lot of Sea Serpents anyway, so that part doesn't really matter. But the important part here is you can shuffle up the 3 monsters from your opponent's graveyard into the deck. And just like Ange has an additional effect to add pieces back to your hand, but this is not applicable to our deck, so you can ignore that part. Importantly, this is a way of shuffling more of your Wonder Fusion materials back into the deck to set your opponent back in your graveyard setup even further. So I like it here. It's a pretty good inclusion, especially in this format when the best deck really likes the graveyard, and having more ways of disrupting them is very solid in my opinion. But the main key piece that has invigorated this deck is not even a Sea Serpent card. It is a generic in the form of Cat-trois Choice. You do need your opponent to have a monster on the field which basically is every turn except maybe the first turn, or if you use Darkglow or something. And what it does, it can mill 3 cards. That alone isn't as impressive. Obviously, you have other ways of setting up grave, so why are we playing this? It is the second part of the effect. If you have 3 or less monsters in your grave, you can add any card from your graveyard to your hand, which is an insane ability to have access to. And it's also very easy to set up for this deck. You have Apsaras to shuffle, to bot deck your cards. You have Sea Dragon Bat to shuffle your cards back. You have Kraken to shuffle 5 cards back. You have Poseidra to shuffle your entire graveyard back. You have a lot of ways of setting up Cat-trois Choice, making sure you have very little monsters in your grave to get as much value out of the choice as possible. And we have some obviously very powerful cards to add back. You can add back your legend cards like your Reborn, or your Raiza, or your Cylinder, or your other traps like Wrath of Abyss. Or you can add back more disruptive tools like Wrath of Abyss. You can also add back like Graveyard Hate like Grand Extreme, or Woodworking, or if you have managed to mill some good monsters, you can also add them back as well. If you have a Grand Extreme rotation but you need to find a monster to get back, Cat-trois Choice could potentially mill you into something like a Pureglass Spears or Apsaras to special summon out with the Grand Extreme and just really set up some very explosive plays. You can also add back removal. We are running a lot of back removal. I like the ability to make sure I can clear my opponent's potential resources that was saved on the previous turn. Get rid of key traps like Mirror Force or Cylinder or Scat Thief that would otherwise make things a little bit harder for you. Or just getting rid of this very powerful spell cards like Wonder Fusion or Legend Strike, those kind of things. And with the Vanishing Torrents and the Ghost Cyclones, you have 5 of them, but Cat-trois Choice technically counts as additional back removals. So you technically have 8 back removals plus Sea Dragon Bat, which is technically more back removal. It's really more like back row scouting to make sure that your back row hit gets as much value as possible. So you really have a lot of hit for back removal, and I guess Raiza is technically back removal as well. Which basically means most of the time back row against your deck is irrelevant. It doesn't really matter against your deck. You will blow them up. You should theoretically have access to at least 1 piece of back removal at most points of the game, which is very key for me personally because I don't want to be caught unaware of back row that could potentially end the game, because back row is pretty powerful, and getting rid of it, whether it is powerful spell cards or powerful interactions and traps, either way, still very good to get rid of them. That's just like one of the very powerful things Cat-trois Choice can do, and we'll be seeing just how good this card is in the replays that we have later on. But some other key pieces about this deck I want to talk about. For Barrier Statue, that's not a key piece, but it's a very powerful piece. The reason why we want Monster Reborn over something else is because it gets the most value with Cat-trois Choice. That was, I think, another key thing that I wanted with this build is to just both have the insane power spikes that you can get off of Cat-trois Choice, while also keeping the consistency and stability that standard builds have. So Reborn fit that build really nicely. It is a very powerful card to get off of Cat-trois Choice. There's a lot of synergy with it, and it can really set up some of your very powerful plays. Special summoning a Pureglass Spears still allows it to be flipped out into attack position and just like slam your opponent. It's very powerful. And it is also technically Graveyard Hate as well. You can also steal your opponent's 7-Throat Magician or their other material and keep it on your side of the board so that they can't fuse with it, which is a pretty interesting prospect for this card to have. Not the main one, obviously, but it is, in general, still very powerful effect. It just has that additional niche attached to it. We are running 2 Gold Cyclones. You might want to run the 3 copies, but I felt like having Vanishing Torrent be able to be used even if you have a monster on board is preferable to me to be top decking it. So I'm only running the 2 Gold Cyclones, and you only really need 2 Gold Cyclones anyway. It is very easy to set up for this deck. The same way you set up Cat-trois Choice, you can set up Gold Cyclone. Except Gold Cyclone is technically easier to set up. So you can just have it active whenever you need to, mostly. And you can just use it whenever you need to. You don't really need to worry about drawing it early enough because you can always set it up in the mid game. So completely fine just running at 2 copies. You can run more if you want to, but I think 2 copies is the perfect amount. And for the traps, 2 Wrath of Abyss to play through Lurker and stuff. and it is just in general a very solid trap into most matchups, which I felt like it was a very important thing to have. And also, World of Working is here as a one-off. You can even play more if you're that worried or want the matchup, but we already have a lot of graveyard hate in this deck, so I don't think it is necessary. But I like to keep the one World Working in the main just in case. It is still a pretty powerful card against this deck. And for Legend Trap, we are running the Cylinder. I feel like I should have been on Mirror Force here, but I ended up being going onto the Cylinder last minute because it is a better card to add back off of the Cat-trois Choice. But I felt like that was, like, after the tournament, I felt like that was, in hindsight, not the best play. I think it was a little bit optimistic to be in a situation where you can do that. So I felt like I feel like having something like a Mirror Force, which is in that event more consistently useful for me, would have been better. But then again, Cylinder is still like pretty powerful card, so you can like still make the decision to run this just because it is universally good in most matchups. For side deck here, Vanity's Fiend is a stun, Floodgate, cool, great, cool, fun card. Speaking of Floodgates, we also have the Prison Island, Cell Block 5 and 6. This is for the Harpie matchup, also technically for the Executing matchup, but that wasn't really something that I was expecting to play into anyway. Deepsea Hunter is also here. Has additional synergy with this deck because it is Sea Serpent, you can summon it back off of the Apsaras. It is a Sea Serpent 4, Vanishing Torrent, although that doesn't really matter because we have a lot of Sea Serpents to the deck anyway, but I digress. It's just like a total of 4 cards for the Harpie matchup. Arguably, I should have been on more. I did play against Harpie this event, but I think this count was fine in hindsight. I think it worked out, like, is what I'll say. We have the all-seeing Harvey and the Kraken R for local matchups, like Wonder. Did not come up, but I felt like it felt like nice to have. But I will say the right Krakens didn't feel very good after that event, like when I actually got to test it out. But maybe I just need to test it out a bit more and see whether it works out. This was a very experimental part of this deck. I would maybe cut it for more Deepsea Hunters or Harpie, or Cell Blocks for the Harpie matchup. But I think it's not that bad to run this. If you want to run like more Bat Eels, also you can like run it over Pureglass Spears because they technically have a similar role, and it allows you to have even more draw power. But that was the build I was considering, but I ended up with this build instead. As for other stuff in the side deck, the Extra World Working for more Great Hate for Wonder, Darkglow. Normally I'd type this in for Wonder because despite the fact that Reborn has the niche that you can steal their fusion material, that is a pretty niche application, and having the Darkglow for Lurker is more paramount to me in that matchup. Hardefense, this could be anything. It's just like throwaway trap mostly. I felt that Hardefense would be the type of card that would be pretty solid into rogue matchups, which is why I'm on it. But you can play like a Chaotic Acid Trap pool for more cards against Reptile, or like I guess Crisis at the Sacred Tower for more of on-summon disruption. But there's a lot of things I can put in here. I think Hardefense was just my go-to for just additional cards to put in here. Or you can also put in traditional attacks for like Maximum, but I'm not that worried about that matchup anyway, so who cares. I have Torrential for that matchup, so it's fine. Unless it's like, well, every good Maximum piece is either, every good Maximum deck is either not actually trying to Maximum summon, or their Maximum summon dies with Torrential. So you generally will be signing this in. Those matchups are Vocalized Maximum and the Sea Serpent Maximum. The Sea Serpent Maximum came out once, but most of the time I didn't really have this in. I think I started this into Wonder once, but I don't really remember right now. Mirror Force would be better for the aggro matchups and like decks like Reptile, which I would have really liked in this event because it would have really came out a lot. But again, we already discussed Cylinder versus Mirror Force in this. And now for that tournament, it was I think a 34 player tournament. 33, I can't remember exactly. And I'm not gonna spoil the ending right now. We'll just go over all the matches in sequential order. and we'll show off how the deck works and talk about stuff. And yeah, let's move on to the gameplay. Round 1 was Maximum Sea Serpent, kind of a Mirage, not really. Similar to our deck, it did the Maximum build also did benefit from Cat-trois, but I still don't think it is better than Midrange, although you can do some very nasty things depending on the hand. We'll go over this replay slower than I normally do, because I do want to give some more in-depth insight to this. They start with the invitation here. I feel like I would have started with the Cat-trois, given they might accidentally mill too many monsters, so I'm not exactly sure how many spells to monsters they're running here. They don't find anything, so they just pass. Oh wait, no, they can't Cat-trois. I don't have any monsters. I've played this deck for a while already, and I still don't remember the Cat-trois requirement. So they just mill 3 and just pass here. They're playing Emergency Return, which is kind of funny for 7th gear, so that I think that there might be a better card to run here. But whatever the case, we get to go to Altern here, where we find Pureglass, which is very good. We just tribute summon the Kraken here. No need to activate the Anges when our hand is already this good. We just special summon the Pureglass here. We choose to shuffle back their Vodyanoy here, which I think was wrong. Just because I know that they're playing Cat-trois, I don't think I needed to give them a better chance of hitting that Cat-trois here. Whatever the case, I use Pureglass here to target itself so that I can play around Scat Thief. And I go to battle, I swing Enyo. That's another good thing about this deck with Pureglass. You get to play around Scat Thief very easily. And if they had Scat Thief here, they basically wouldn't have done anything, which is very nice. Whatever the case, we had to go in for 26 and pass by against them. And they draw, well, we'll see what they get with the Cat-trois first, and they hit Grace Wolf, which is very nice. And also, yeah, because of my me shuffling the Vodyanoy back, they are able to hit the Cat-trois Choice here, which snowballed into them doing some cool stuff here. They go for the Graceful here, they activate the Graceful, draw 3, discard Angler here, and now they get to go for their Maximum here, which is definitely very threatening because this deck doesn't actually have a very good way of answering this Maximum. You need a very specific hand here to actually deal with it if they have the protection life, but as you can see here, they do not have the protection. They still have 2 monsters left in graveyard here, which means that I have a lot more options at my disposal here. I can draw into Poseidra, for example, which would be very nice here for sure. Poseidra will be able to just hop in, I would just be able to go in. But if I don't draw something like that, I will be put on the clock here. Although having a Kraken or an Angler to get back the Kraken would be pretty good as well. Let's see what we draw here though, and just right on time the Poseidra comes down here. We go for the Poseidra, we activate the effect, we pop them because they don't have any an empty graveyard here for the protection, and we just go in here. We play a little bit around Magic Cylinder here, go to battle phase, swing in, and they just concede, which yeah, not much you can do there. We drew the out at the exact same time that we needed it, and playing around, I could have played around Mirror Force here also, but generally most people's first instinct as to what Legend Trap they want to put in is Magic Cylinder for game 1. So I figured that playing around the Magic Cylinder was a better choice here. And it definitely paid off here. You can see that they had the Magic Cylinder, but because we did this in a specific way where even if they cylinder, they would have still died, they had to concede here, which is very nice. Okay, game 2, they made us go second, which is very nice for us. We do have a lot of advantages when we go second as well. Not something that is important enough that we want to blind second, but it is definitely something that gives us an edge when our opponent is trying to go first to set up their own plays. They get to draw Vodyanoy early, which is very nice. They get to not draw into a very good card here, unfortunately. They draw into a duplicate piece, which isn't great here. But they can still just tribute summon this Kraken and pass. Unfortunately, because of level 10, we can't use Apsaras here, but we do still have the Gold Cyclone here to cycle 1 here, and the Cat-trois to mill 3. And there's only really one option here. Adding Pureglass here doesn't matter, adding Vanishing Torrent is pointless when we already have that Gold Cyclone we can add. And there's no reason to risk a Cat-trois going wrong by adding the other one. Not much better, there's not much else that I would want over the Gold Cyclone here anyway, so I just go for the Gold Cyclone to pop another backer and draw 1. And I draw into the Vodyanoy, which is fine. I don't really care about cycling anything here. I just want to go for damage here, and this hand already offers me a pretty good hand for that, so we get to go for the Apsaras here. Doesn't pop, but we still get to special summon the Vodyanoy back, and also we get to normal summon the Angler here and go to battle. We kept the Pureglass Engrave because we are still on Reborn at this point. Because I was figuring Darkglow wouldn't be consistently useful once they get their whole graveyard set up. So we chose to keep the Reborn, and keeping the Pureglass Engrave allows us to have a good target for Reborn to bring back to make it easier for us to beat over their Maximum should they actually Maximum summon. And also, just a quick note, this would have been a matchup where they would have like having traditional attacks. Well, kind of, not really, because like they do have a lot of ways of just adding stuff back to hand from grave, which would play around traditional attacks. But I think in general, to counter stuff like Bat Eel and Heavenly Gift would be pretty nice. They go for the invitation here to mill 3 and add the middle piece, which in response we choose to shuffle away their maximum pieces here to make sure they can't use Angler to get them back. But little did I know they already have the Kraken in hand, so it didn't matter, which is definitely very unfortunate. They go for the Bat Eel here, they reveal the card, and I go, oh great, yeah, they had the third one anyway. But they didn't really actually get to the maximum here. They choose to just go for the Cat-trois here to mill 3, use the Angler to add back the Kraken out that they did mill off the top, which is very nice for them. This would have ended faster. We just didn't mill that Kraken. You can see here they didn't have it previously. They just milled it off the top with the Angler. But they used the Angler effect here to shuffle 5 to debuff the Apsaras here to beat over it, which is completely fine here still. Like, we're still in a pretty good position as long as we draw well. And we draw not great. We use the Angler to mill 1 and hopefully find a maximum piece on the top, which we did not. But keeping the Pureglass Engrave here definitely helped out here because we did immediately draw the Reborns, which allows us to bring back the Pureglass, but we're not really doing anything else. We're just using Pureglass and attacking in and then sending the Vanishing as well. And then we just swing in, and if they don't have anything here, we do still win. But they draw a Bat Eel here, which is pretty nice. They get to draw 2 here and finds them the last remaining maximum piece they need. That's because we can use the Angler to add back the middle piece, which allows them to set up their maximum summon here. But same situation as before, they aren't actually able to clear the graveyard here. They can show 5, but they still have monsters in graveyard range that Poseidra, if I top deck it, is still able to help me win the game here. They are able to attack over the Kraken here, and if I do not find the out here, I do die. But I draw the Poseidra. I tribute summon Poseidra, I activate Poseidra, and they concede because it is lethal. I think that's... I wouldn't say that their build is like optimal Maximum Sea Serpent, but like... I think this shows like just in the general stability of the mid-range build really helped me win the game here. Although I think the optimal build will be better at shuffling the graveyard here, and would make it a lot harder for me to activate Poseidra. And despite the fact that like if their graveyards were empty, then they would probably have maybe even won both games because I wouldn't have an easy out to their Kraken here. But I think that it definitely shows the consistency of this deck and just like how stable it is compared to Maximum sometimes. The second round was against Reptile here, and we got to start here. Unfortunately not a fantastic hand, but we got the Ange here to just got a Poseidra and hopefully find low level, which we did. So we just normal summon Pureglass activates effect. The reason why we do it this way is because we're worried about Harvey. Harvey would just be able to pop the Pureglass for free and offer them a huge tempo advantage. And I wasn't sure whether they were playing it, so I decided to play it safe and just put it face up instead. And it's still in defense, so I still get the benefit. The only benefit I don't have is the information, because they could potentially think it was a Kraken and offer me free damage, like a 0 defense monster or something. And another disadvantage is that they would be able to debuff it with the Snake Princess of Purity, which I didn't know that they had because I didn't know what deck they won. But despite the fact that it doesn't debuff defense, it would still allow them to draw cards, which maybe potentially would have allowed them to find something to help hit over the Pureglass Spears. But looking back, I think that it was still definitely correct. Even if they don't have Harvey in the deck, they don't actually have a lot of ways to beat over the Pureglass Spears. They need like Caligulaon, I guess, or they activate Mystery and go -1,000,000 to out this, which would be beneficial for us anyway. What they end up going is they go for a ship here, which makes sense given that it's not enough to beat over the Pureglass yet. They go for the Legend Magician here to see what they can find, and they find a bear statue, which is kind of annoying because they go immediately into the bear statue, bring it back, which was definitely kind of threatening here. I didn't have an ult for it outside of just attacking into it, so it just didn't make my Grag Stream offline, which is definitely very unfortunate. But they choose to just pass here, which is very interesting. They choose to just willingly take more damage to to try to make sure that they have this 1-2 punch of the Purity plus War to Zen, which I don't think is necessarily correct. I feel like that depending on what your next draw is, it could go very wrongly, and you can really definitely take a lot of damage here. And this is I believe what happens here. Unfortunately, not a fantastic hand, and it would be a lot better if the Various Statue weren't on board either. But we get to go for the Cat-trois here, which whiffs, and then we get to go for another Cat-trois, which whiffs again because obviously it would whiff after we activate the first one. Then we get to go for the Pureglass and attack over the Barrier Statue here. Again, if the Barrier Statue won, then we'd have a much better turn. But we couldn't even tribute summon anything, and these Cat-trois weren't live, so we just had to use those to mill 6 to just empty our hand and make sure we didn't have those in rotation anymore, to make sure that we can draw into something that's better. After doing that, we just pass here, where they have full range to do cool stuff, especially after they do the Graceful Charity, and then go for the Light Wave to mill 2, use the Sea Dragon check back row. They find the Cat-trois, which allows them to get another pop, which unfortunately means that we do not have access to Cat-trois anymore because we don't have any ways to recycle spells in this deck. But they don't really do much else. They got to go for the Purity to draw an extra card, and they go for the want to send the pop and get in for a lot of damage here. But we are able to start doing our things here, and this is definitely a precarious situation. Obviously, it's not a very nice situation to be in, especially against Reptile, where, well, not true. Even if they had the Reptile battle trap, we had Grand Extreme to shuffle all the cards anyway, so they really matter in this situation. But depending on what we draw here, might go pretty wrongly here. Although it did go pretty well here, we'll go for the Grand Extreme here. Special summoning the Apsaras in order to make sure that we can get an additional tribute fodder to tribute summon the Kraken in our hand. And unfortunately, we aren't able to activate the Apsaras effect here. But we are still able to get something from a graveyard onto the board. But they could choose to go for word working here, which is interesting. Until you realize that they shuffled enough cards for us to be able to activate Apsaras' effect. Definitely a misplay from them, allows us to make a much better turn here. We get to go for the Special Summon of Ange here, and then we get to go for the Vanishing Torrent, get rid of the last unknown back row, and then we get to tribute summon the Kraken here, activating the effect to just shuffle some cards back and just get in for more damage here. This would have been a much more precarious situation had they just not activated word working, or at the very least activated word working and shuffled less cards into my deck. They do still have the miss card, so maybe they get to find something here, but they choose to go for Mistake here, which is probably wrong. I guess arguably, you might be thinking you will already go for the mismatch to special summon the Purity, so you don't need to go for the miscast here. Which I think is just wrong, right? Like, with a miscast, you can add back. I guess you didn't technically have anything to add back, but I think there's a pretty high chance that you'd add back something of the miscast here, which would translate into being able to add back the Purity that way, or you can add back another tribute folder that way. I don't know. I think going Mystic here definitely isn't necessarily wrong, especially because you don't have the full setup. If you had 2 Snake of Purities in Grave, then I think going for miscast is like 100% the correct play. But I think this is arguably completely fine, given that it allows you to draw whatever you want off of the Purity basically, and makes your board less fragile if you aren't able to find something else off of the miscast and the Mystic and whatnot. From the Mystic here, they do get they get the interesting that they chose to go for the mismatch. Actually, I think that I would probably have gone for the Mystery here, probably just so that I can either have it to tribute over my leftover monsters on board, or to use ship with. I think that those would be better, and the extra low folder here doesn't really do anything here. They go for the mismatch here, they activate the effect, they special summon the Purity, they draw a card here. They choose to stack the War to Zen on the top, which it's better than the miscast in this situation, I guess. But yeah, they definitely should have added the Mystery of the Mystic here. Because of that, they have to go ship just for 1 to discuss the mismatch, which draws them into the Mystery, so no punish, I guess. And the normal summon nothing, because I get to Wrath of Abyss to wipe their entire board. Because I have nothing in Grave because of all my setup. That's also the other reason why I used the Kraken earlier, to set up the Wrath. And I wasn't, I did get a little greedy with not immediately activating the, oh no, I couldn't activate it then. Although I arguably shouldn't have activated I should have activated it maybe on the mismatch, but I could have gotten punished by the miscast, which they did end up having. So I think I was happy with, I was overall pretty happy with this play of making sure I keep the Wrath or something like a Mystery. But depending on how they played it, if they went like Purity and then they swung past, it could have gone a lot differently, I think. But because they did end up going into the Mystery, I was able to get a very solid Wrath of Abyssal, which forces them to just set in posture. Now they do also have the Magic Cylinder, but I did end up also joining the Vanishing on top of me, also already having the Raiza, but Vanishing is better here in case they actually had Execute Writing, which he didn't, so it didn't matter either way. I was able to just pop that Vanishing Torrent, pop with the Vanishing Torrent and hitting the Magic Cylinder, which was very nice. And then going for Raiza here just for fun, I guess. Whatever the case is, just lethal, we just swing in and we just win the game. Game 2 here, they find Barrier Statue early, which is kind of annoying. They go for the mistake now and they find nothing particularly interesting. They choose to add the mismatch back just to have a blocker. And they choose to play very fast, very conservative with their pieces here. And just keep this whole War to Zen plus Purity in hand, which is again, I'm not really a big fan of it. I think that I would have just dropped the guys onto the board and just make sure I can have a better chance of drawing into my actually good cards. But the Barrier Statue is pretty annoying though. We get a draw here, we go, yeah, again, if this Barrier Statue weren't here, Grand Stream into Pureglass would be insane. And Cat-trois would potentially add back the Grand Stream for next turn or add back something else, which would have been very strong. But unfortunately, we get to just mill 3 here, and not the best mills if it weren't for Cat-trois Choice. We get to add back the Darkglow here, which actually allows us to do that play that we mentioned of Grand Streaming into the Pureglass here, which is pretty nice. We do exactly that. We shuffle back the everything here just to make sure that they don't have an easier time drawing to everything else. We choose to shuffle back the Reptiles because even though that they are pretty good cards to draw off the top for them, they are also pretty good targets for miscast to add back. So I don't want them to be able to do that. And we shuffle back the Barrier Statue because despite the fact that if they draw it after this, it wouldn't be very good for us. It is also not very good for us if they Legend Strike it back. So I chose to not let them do that, and we chose to go Special Summon Pureglass, activate the effect, and just swing in. We don't need to attack the other two. It's just an additional 2000 damage, which could matter, but I don't think it matters enough to the point where I can just like choose to ignore the fact that they could have Mirror Force in the back row. So we chose to just set just to make sure that we don't randomly die out of nowhere to Mirror Force. And we just attack in. We're still gonna kill over a couple turns anyway, and I don't think I am that worried about this deck's kill potential up to a certain point, so we should be fine here. They find the miscast here, which is very strong. They mill 3 and they find the mistake anyway, so it didn't matter that we shuffled it back, but it might have mattered. Still very important to make sure that we cut them off as many potential options as possible, but they go for the mistake here. Activating, in fact, they go for Purity here, which I think they will just do they have? No, they don't have the ship even. So their hand is actually not very good, which is why I would have made sure I would have gotten rid of as many cards as possible here. Just get that Purity or Princess down, Purity down to make sure you can empty your hand as much as possible to make sure you can draw into your smoother draws here. They go for the Purity here, which debuffs, and they aren't able to go for the Water Zen here because they need another lower attack light monster. So if they just had one more, they could pop the Pureglass and go in for a lot of damage, but they didn't, so they just go for a tribute summon of a healer here to shuffle back the ship here for life points, and they go battles to swing in and pass back to us. Fortunately for us, they keep the Angler, which maybe potentially helps us high roll into a maximum piece at the top. Which we don't actually need to do here because we have a pretty good hand here. We go for Sea Dragon to reveal the card, but importantly, it gets enough cards in, rather, it shuffles enough cards from our graveyard back into a deck to allow us to activate Apsaras' full effect here to get the removal, and also allows us to go into the Kraken to shuffle back their cards here. And given that we know that this is just another back removal, we choose to keep this Vanishing Torrent in case they draw into something else that could potentially be more threatening than this back removal. They could, of course, use it on us instead, which we're fine with because it's just a back row trade, but technically maybe getting them off the Scry 1 might have been important. but not important enough to the point where I would have done otherwise, I think. Or rather, it's not important enough, so I decided to just keep it for something more valuable. We didn't need it anyway. We send in for damage, and they're not looking too good here. They draw into a ship here, which is important, but they did draw into another high level, so it's not really that great either. They go for the Did they go for the mistake here? I think they... Oh no, they shuffled back first, which it's actually good sequencing. They went shuffle back the cards that they want to add back of the Purity here, or the Mistake here, to then use Mistake's effect, which is pretty nice. They do add another 7, which they will be discarding. And unfortunately, they don't fight any more high levels here, which is fortunate for us. They go for the Legend Strike here to summon the Water Sand, which doesn't do anything because, again, they don't have another low level. So this effectively is just an additional 600 debuff, which is not good enough because it offers us a very good target to just debuff over and hit over. Although the silver lining here is that they are able to use the Water Sand to attack over both our monsters, which I guess is worth it enough, but if I just normal summon any beater here, I should just be able to win the game. Although they were probably safer in that because they were safer, they were probably, they made this play anyway because they had the shared sentiments to protect themselves. So they were probably feeling safe behind it. But still definitely very risky play here. We draw here and we find another Apsaras, which is very strong here for sure. We go for the Angler here. And sensing that we might immediately remove their back row, they immediately go for the shared sentiments, which is kind of annoying. It would have been pretty nice to get rid of it using the Vanishing Torrent. And they choose to also buff their weaker monster because they know that I can already add back the Kraken with the Angler. Maybe in hindsight I should have gone for normal summon Ange instead, because that does not telegraph what play I'm going for. So it would have made this turn a little bit easier, but I still win this turn anyway, so it doesn't matter. We go for the Angler here, we add back the Kraken here, then we tribute summon the Kraken here and use this effect. And because it's still lethal anyway, we just shuffle the cards here and debuff it to enough where I can still hit over for lethal. But if I wanted to, I could go for... I believe I could go for Apsaras. Hold on, let me count again. No, actually I couldn't have gone for it. That's not true actually. I could have... yeah, I could have gone for it though. The only diff... Hold on. I may be miscounting how many I have. Let me go back. Oh no, because if this very statue were a Sea Serpent instead of this berry statue, then I think I could have gone for it here. Yeah, I just needed to... Well, I guess it wouldn't matter, right? Yeah, it wouldn't matter. I didn't have enough cards in hand anyway. So yeah, no, this was still correct. This was the only actual correct way. Although I guess the difference is I would have been able to have an extra body about, which didn't matter because I already know that the back row is just nothing anyway. I'm just flexing at this point. I get another pop here. That's cool, I guess. But doesn't matter. I still win anyway. And that's the end of the game. After I use Kraken to debuff their monster and attack out for it for lethal. Alright, the third game here is against Wonder. This is the more proactive build I was talking about with a lot of tech pieces and like Fiend trying to attack dragons and whatnot. Very interesting, different from the lurker builds obviously, but I still think the lurker build is better. And we'll see how it goes for them here. We normal summon Berry Statue. I just turn one. You always do this anyway, just slows them down as much as possible. And they draw here, nothing too great here. They go for the Severance here to see what they can find on the top. And they find the Dryas here, which is insanely good here because they can go for the Fiend trying to add back the Dryas here, and they use Dryas to just swing in. They just needed to not find the Dryas for the Severance, and I guess they would have still gone for Astrom and then swung in. But finding the Dragons up the top is still very good here for them. Allows them to swing over everything and then pass back to us, where we draw into Gold Cyclone, which is very good. We get to get rid of the back row here, which turns out to be the XP riding with, not the XP riding the Ship with some treasures, which is just nice for consistency, just cutting off the consistency here. We get to go for the Apsaras as well, and also special summoning the Pureglass out. and shuffling their cards here. Just shuffling as many as possible to make sure that it's as hard for them as possible to get to their material. We go for the Apsaras effect to special summon the Sea Dragon Knight, and unfortunately because of the barrier statue in grave, we aren't able to get the pop effect. But we are able to go for the Cat-trois here to hopefully add back something here, and we choose to add back the Vanishing here for next turn. Just getting back the graveyard here is still pretty good. And we're choosing not to add back the barrier statue here because we don't have any space for it on board, and we don't want to we want to make sure we can empty our hand as much as possible to join to our better cards anyway. So adding the Vanishing, which is basically the same thing, if not better for us later down the line, is better here. We gotta go for the Pureglass still here to get in for a bunch of damage. And pass back. Notably, if they find Wonder Fusion plus 7 gears, I lose anyway. But if they find it, they find it. They have to find it out. They tribute summon the Magician here, and it's at this point where I just decided to go for Wrath of Abyss, which I think is correct. It definitely turned out correct in this situation, and I did want to be able to make sure I can end the game as fast as possible, so I wanted to spend my removal on just making sure I can clear the board and allow me to just get in for damage as much as possible, which is why I did it now. And after that they choose to go for the Legend Strike here for Barrier Statue, which is definitely kind of annoying. But it's not that bad here. They also set their riding here because it's nice. But it doesn't really matter here. I check the back row, I find the riding here, and I get to remove it immediately because of the Vanishing Torrent. But it doesn't matter anyway because I already have lethal on board with the Pureglass Spears given the piercing, and I have more than enough damage to swing in for lethal. Very, very smooth game for my pot here. And game 2 here. This opener doesn't seem very good, but it might turn out a lot better moving into the next turn here. They start the turn here, just tribute setting everything and passing back. Tribute setting Magician is absolutely correct here. Its attack points isn't big enough where you care about it being an attack, and splitting in defense means that I can't actually use Apsaras to kill it if I end up finding it, or Kraken to debuff it even. And it also gives me the illusion that it might be local, although this isn't something that you can apply to other matches. But I know personally that this person doesn't like playing local, and I played against them in another event where they didn't play local, so I was fairly certain that it wasn't local. The only thing that it could have been that might have been a problem is Blue Eyes, because I know they're playing Blue Eyes, which also has a pretty beefy defense stat. But whatever the case, it goes back to our turn here, where we draw Vodyanoy, which is pretty nice. We go to Vodyanoy here. We tuck back the Kraken here, because the Poseidra is theoretically better if we get enough Sea Serpents fast enough to pop the potential Blue Eyes in the defense position here. We go for the Monster Reborn here to get back their Harvey here, which allows us to pop their face down here, which is a very funny play, but we're doing this mostly so that we can use Cat-trois on that Monster Reborn here. Also, a funny story here, I completely forgot which set card was the tribute set here in the actual game, because I wasn't paying attention at that point. Luckily, I actually ended up hitting the correct one, which allowed us to get the actual pop, which unfortunately gives them a pretty good target for riding here, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. We add back the Monster Reborn with the Cat-trois here. All the options basically aren't really doing that much, and no reason to add back the Apsaras here because I can just reborn it back anyway. And I actually wanted to reborn the 7-stroke Magician here to keep them off of it, which is kind of graveyard heat in that sense. But we unfortunately don't get to do that. We go to mill 1 off of the Angler here, trying to find an extra Sea Serpent to use Poseidra's effect, but unfortunately we did not. But we're still going to tribute summon the Poseidra anyway, which at that point they go for their riding here, which unfortunately means that we can't use Reborn to get back their Magician to get it off of their graveyard. So they get that's pretty annoying for them, for us for sure. But we still get to tribute summon the Vanities, and we get to set the Monster Reborn. They know we have Monster Reborn still, but it's still nice to have it for future turns anyway. But whatever the case, we get to go Vanities, swing in, pass back to them. And unfortunately, maybe we should have gone for Monster Reborn to bring back a guy here to hit over this, because turns out it wasn't a killer, so they are able to use a killer to just pop my Vanity's Fiend and just remove the Floodgate effect off the board. But I think something funny here is that I did the reason why I attributed over the Poseidra here is because on the off chance that they find a killer, or in this case they had a killer from previous turn, And if they had a Keeler plus a way to get 7th gears, having the Poseidra on board would mean we lose the game because of that. Whereas instead I had the low level on board, which would theoretically allow me to not die the 7th gears, and also keeps a level 4 off their graveyard here, which did actually matter here because they found they didn't have level 4 in the graveyard and had Vanity Fiend on board, but despite the fact that they had a Keeler to remove it, they didn't have a level 4 to bring back Legend Strike anyway, so they wouldn't be able to actually get anything from their hand onto the board, which unfortunately for them they did break here. They drew Blue Eyes and 2 Magicians here, which sucks ass, but it is what it is, right? They go for the Keeler here and they mill a 7th here, which doesn't actually do anything because they don't have that Celestial Starts that would have been pretty nice for them. So they just swing in here and then pass back to us, where we can do some nasty stuff with the Reborn that we had from previous turns, and also the Grand Stream is pretty good as well. Go for a Vodyanoy here to tuck back 1 and draw 1, just to see what we could get here. And this is a pretty nasty turn here, you will see. We go for the Monster Reborn for the Apsaras here, just to get an additional tribute for the Beater on board. We got to go for the Angler here, and use the Angler to mill 1 to get another Sea Serpent engraved. This time we succeed, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Sea Serpents, which is exactly enough for the Poseidra effect. And we get to go for it here, and unfortunately they have the word working here, which stops our play. If they did not have this, we would have literally just won on the spot, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. They were able to word working here to shuffle everything away, which prevented us from winning, but we are still in a pretty good position here with both Mirror Force and Grand Stream for the Pureglass here. Shuffling back their Celestial Starts targets here, and just all their targets for all their cards that need the graveyard back in the deck, which is very good. We activate the effect, we go in on the offensive, we attack in. No reason to play around 7th gears by shifting something to defense because they already have 2 things to attack into, so just go all in and just deal as much damage as possible. If they do not have an ult here, they lose the game, and chances are with only 2 cards they probably won't find anything. But they do have a Legend Strike here to summon the Aquila here so that they can maybe get 1 monster on board, which isn't very good. And the Aquila here to mill 1, and they do find the Severance here, which can special summon the Severance from the graveyard here and shuffle back some of my spells, I guess. Which allows them to go into the Blue Eyes here to hit over our Pureglass and pass back to us. And that would have been actually pretty annoying. If I wasn't able to get another Sea Serpent in grave, I wouldn't actually be able to help it, which was their best way of winning here. That was their best shot at winning here, although I would probably maybe gotten rid of a Magician as well by tributing over the Magician, tributing the Magician first and then tributing over it. Yes, that plays into graveyard hit, but you already have the Magician and rotation in hand anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And would have offered you more cards. Would have offered you more cards on your next turn, assuming you live, which in this case they didn't because I had the Mirror Force just out the Blue Eyes just to win the game on the crackback. But small optimizations that might have mattered, which in this case did not, but you know, worth talking about anyway. And this game was just just an insane high roll for me, honestly. But yeah, this is what the deck is capable of when it is able to draw all those pieces. And because of that, we are able to pick up a pretty clean 2-0 for this game. Game 4 was against Earth Machine, not a deck that I was expecting to play against, but if they go Power Bond turn 1, you know, sometimes they just win off of that. They do exactly that. They make Killer Stinger turn 1 with 6,000 attack, which is something that this deck isn't really capable of outing very easily, very early anyway. Now, we could have absolutely decided to just set and pass here, but I decided that I didn't think that I had that much time to out this, so I decided to just go for Broken and go for Vodyanoy to draw 2, and then set everything else, which does put me very open to taking a lot of damage from the Killer Stinger. And I think in retrospect it was better to just set 3 here. But I think that this is a fine risk to take. I think overall it would have been a lot safer to just set 3 and just hope that you get to set up something like a Poseidra to out it on a later turn here. I think it was kind of reckless for me to do it this way though. And it also assumes that they would have enough pressure to out me. I was assuming they want Innovator, or well, there was a possibility that they want Innovator, but I know personally that their list did not have Innovator. But they could have also maybe gone for, now if they went for a Killer Stinger line, they wouldn't have or rather if they were going for a Centipede line, they wouldn't have the Killer Stinger on board anyway. But still, I was feeling kind of threatened here, probably just due to the lack of experience in this matchup, because not many people play this deck. They gain a lot of life points here, and to mitigate the life point cost of that Power Bond from earlier. And we go for the word working here to prevent the Rex from sniping immediately and just start resetting the graveyard here. And also prevent it from sniping the additional Vanishing Torrent here, but it's a lost cause here. They set up the grave, they set the card, they swing in. It's still a really downhill matchup for me here right now. And while we find our vanities here, which is pretty good, we don't find much else. We go for the we go for the Reborn first to get their monster back so that we can potentially use the Reborn of the Cat-trois again. Instead, we choose to go for the Barrier Statue, which I think is a pretty good choice here. We go for the Raiza here to spin their Killer Stinger Nose on the Barrier Statue to prevent them from using something like a Cobra or something. And then we're just swing it and pass back to them. I think it's a pretty good ball position to be in. They go for the dig up here. That works. That's not really that bad. They add Ignition just for additional defense, I suppose, which is not that bad. And they, especially because they could theoretically protect themselves with the Cobra here, they choose to swing over my Barrier Statue with the Legend Magician here, which gets it off the board so that I don't have it for future turns. And if I draw like remotely well, I should be fine here. But I'm missing one low level here. Maybe you can find it off the Bat Eel here, which draws one, which we did find. Apsaras is now able to go for that special summon here of the Sea Dragon Bat, and we use Sea Dragon Bat to check the back row, and we find the Ignition here, and we use the Vanishing Torrent to, now that we have the information from the Sea Dragon Bat, we have a better chance of hitting something on the Vanishing Torrent. I didn't really care about this Joint Ignition, and I know that this card didn't do anything from the previous turn, so I was confident in not hitting it, so I chose to hit the last completely unknown card, which was this card, which was the Magic Cylinder, which I was pretty happy with. But I still don't have lethal here, and they could potentially have some lines here, like if they go hero, they can swing in and go lethal that way by. Also, important note about this turn here, which I have to spam click previous to do this here. I need to go back to the point where here. So I have Wrath of Abyss in hand, and it's a very powerful effect. But I chose to go for I chose to tribute the Bat Eel away inside the Vanity Fiend because I was expecting that leaving the Bat Eel on board would make me more vulnerable, despite the fact that I had the Wrath of Abyss and the Magic Cylinder in grave. Depending on how well they draw with the back removals, it might leaving the Bat Eel might have been the potential cause for me losing the game, depending on what happens. But it means it turns off my Wrath of Abyss. It means I don't get to actually activate it and get and interact on their turn, which is very important if they draw something that can Arc Scorpio to be able to turn on their Power Bond play again. Which unfortunately does end up costing me the game, spoiler alert. But I think I was justified in playing it this way because it's hard to call it safer because it turns off the Barrier Statue. It turns off the Wrath of Abyss. It's arguably reckless because of that, but I think it was equally reckless to leave a 1000 attack body on board also. I don't know, I think it could have gone either way. But whatever the case, after I made this play that kept the Raiza on board to make sure that I had Wrath of Abyss online. Oh, actually, no, because I was intending to keep the Ignition on board, I couldn't actually, even if I kept the Bat Eel on board, I wouldn't have been able to kill the Cobra without crashing anyway. So I think that this was still correct in I think that this was still the correct play. Although I guess I didn't. No, I knew they had Ignition from the dig up from earlier. Yeah. No, this is still the correct play. They do actually manage to get to their place here. They'll go for the Legend Strike to pop, luckily for them, the Cylinder. Go for the Arc Scorpio, activate Arc Scorpio, get the Centipede back and the Power Bond back, Power Bond into Killer Stinger, use Killer Stinger as for fun. Just gain a bunch of life points, and it's just swinging for lethal here. If they had missed the 50-50 with the Wrath of Abyss, I would have won this game, but unfortunately a lot of unlucky coincidences and risks that I had to take forced me to lose this game, which is definitely unfortunate. Game 2 here, I'm currently, I have the one loss from previously. I was definitely feeling the pressure from that. There's nothing to talk about in this hand. I just set pass. No reason to be reckless with using Ange to try to find something when you have a higher chance to find something later anyway. Just set pass. No reason to bleed damage at this point. So we just pass back to them. They don't really have a great fantastic turn here. They have an alright one. They go Legend Magician, send a Leo for adding back with potentially with hero later on. They could just tribute some of their guys and swing in here. And this is the perfect situation for us. This is the situation where Apsaras is insane in on the crackback, and we already have the setup from previously with Vanishing Torrent to get rid of the unknown back row and the Darkglow in case we don't draw very well. Although this is not a very good hand if we weren't for the Bat Eel. We use Vanishing Torrent first in case these for some reason have traditional attacks. Use the Bat Eel to draw 2, and we put those back, we go to Apsaras, use the effect to destroy their Up Scorpio and then immediately shuffle it back with the Grand Stream. Good sequencing here, very important to have this type of... What did I put back here? I think it's very important to... Yeah, no, this is just Sea Dragon. I was already sure that I wanted to keep the Grand Stream and the Torrential and the Poseidra anyway. So I just did this just in case I found like Kraken or something that might have been interesting to keep, or maybe if I found Pureglass I would have kept that instead. But I didn't find anything, so I just tucked it back, and this is went for the original play of Grand Streaming into Poseidra to shuffle back the pieces here. Shuffling back the Up Scorpio here is important because it removes a card that it can bring back off of the Joint Attack Cobra, but theoretically you can also pop the Ace instead to shuffle that back, which means I can't Legend Strike and I can't go into Hero also. I think they're both valid. I think going for Up Scorpio is better just because it does more damage, and that's what I ended up doing. I go for that, I do a bunch of damage and then pass back to them. And I have the Torrential, I have the Darkglow, I have a pretty good setup here. And they do top deck a Ace anyway, they didn't even need to go Legend Strike into it. And it allows them to add back the Ace again, and then normal summon the Ace and the set 2. The Dragon is kind of annoying. Or rather, it would be annoying if this was a different deck. Because my deck is level 10s, it does not care about this. They swing in for some damage here, and then pass back to us. And when we draw, what do we draw here? Yeah, that's pretty good. Go for the Angler here. They probably should have just... Nah, that's not true. Just waiting in case I had found something else wouldn't. This is definitely correct here. Try for Angler to mill 1, trying to find Sea Serpent. We just need to find 1 Sea Serpent here. We whiffed the first time, we'll see if we can find it off this one, and we hit it, and we found the Kraken off the top here, which I do prefer. I might as well add it just for versatility in case I end up finding an Angler off the top later if this somehow isn't lethal. But we go for this, we go to Poseidra here, pop their card, normal summon Sea Dragon Bat. I could play around some battle traps here, but I think trying to end the game as fast as possible is important because I don't want to have to deal with a power bomb. We go in, we swing in, we deal damage, and we win the game. Could have been punished here by Mirror Force or something, but the chances of that happening is relatively low anyway, so I figured I think this was a pretty fine risk to take here. And game 3 here, they go first, they go ship, they discard the hero, and they use the drone effect to discard the centipede. I would have just tribute set the centipede here, but they didn't get punished and they found the hero here. So it technically didn't matter, but then they put it in face up attack position anyway, which I will say this now, don't do this. A lot of people do this just because like, oh, it has the higher attack stat. Especially if you're playing against Sea Serpent, you want to make sure you're not putting your stuff in a face up attack position because there are a lot of ways that the opposing Sea Serpent player can take advantage of that. And just in general, a lot of cards can take advantage of it. Take advantage of just having the information and the fact that it can leave off an attack position monster. Or just in general, even if you're like normal summoning magician, you bleed damage for no reason. So it's definitely better to set it here. But it wouldn't matter if I didn't find any... If I had found a Sea Serpent here instead of the Grand Extreme here, I would have been able to pop the Joint Attack hero. But alas, I drew Grand Extreme, which admittedly is still a pretty good card. We gotta go for Grand Extreme here, especially summoning the Pureglass Spears, normal summon Sea Dragon Bat, use Pureglass Spears to hit over the hero. If they had Ignition... Oh no, I chose to go to... Okay, yeah. If I had just gone Pureglass, switch to attack, normal Sea Dragon Bat attack, I could have played into a Joint Attack Ignition, which I know they were on. So I wanted to make sure I didn't play into that, so I went for Apsaras here. Yes, I lose the buff from Pureglass, but I play around Joint Attack Ignition that way, which I think is a lot more preferable to me. I bought that the Pureglass, special summon the Sea Dragon Bat, I popped their guy, which unfortunately was the wrong choice because, in hindsight, because they had the Scat Thief to punish that. But at the end of the day, I lost 1000 damage, which isn't that much anyway. So I think this play was definitely still correct. And they draw here, they go for the Cobra, they special summon the Centipede that is sent to the grave, then they go for the Centipede here to bounce, to pop. Then should be summon Centipede again just to get the attack position body on board, and they special summon Ace here to get the body on board. Now I was considering not using the Mirror Force on this turn if they hadn't gone for the Legend Strike here because it was just kind of no value. But now that they have also spent an additional guy to get back another attacker here, I thought like Mirror Force was pretty good here. So I ended up going for it here. And they just have to pass back to us, and we draw a pretty good one. Anche, we do get to activate Liem here to shuffle back some of their very important pieces. While we didn't have Dry Stream, we could still use Liem to not only empty our hand here, but we can also shuffle back some of their very key pieces here that they otherwise would have really liked in the graveyard here, which they no longer have access to. And we also get to go for the Sea Dragon Knight to just check and end up finding another Legend Strike, which is pretty nice, just free value. So we end the powers and repulse spikes. And here they go for the ship to see what they find off of it. Not much here. They could have considered using Sea Serpent to try to find a body to special summon off of the Legend Strike, but no reason to do that when it doesn't really do anything. They do also negate attack anyway, so it might not matter. Unless we draw back removal, and we actually didn't find back removal here. We go for the Sea Dragon Knight though to check the back row, and we find the Legend Strike, which is a free pop again. Definitely very unfortunate for them to keep hitting these duplicates here. Go for the Cat-trois Choice, and we add the Grand Stream here. We special summon the Kraken, and we shuffles back some of their cards back here. Just at this point, just shuffling back darts here so that they draw into worse cards. And then we can normal summon Vanity here, which is also insane. At this point we choose to play around Mirror Force just in case. Might matter, and we're already in a commanding position, so. And while it's actually not very likely that we win off of this position, there are some like higher defense cards that this play doesn't win against. We are still in a very strong position with Wrath of Abyss live, Hardefense live, Valley's Fiend on board, Darkglow, whatever, crack. So I was feeling very confident anyway. They did go for negate attack, which made it not matter, but no. But they didn't have anything to go afterwards. So they just go for Centipede here because they can't really do anything else. We choose to grab this just to make it easier to kill them on the crackback here. And they don't really have anything anyway, so they just pass back. And this ignition could have been something, so we choose to play around it, I think. Yeah, we choose to go for Apsaras to get Sea Dragon Knight to make sure that we need to check whether we actually need to play around anything. Which turns out we didn't, so we just swing in for lethal. Shocking that the first loss of the tournament was to Earth Machine, which was definitely kind of annoying, but it was to Power Wand, Killer Stinger, and some other lucky plays, which you're gonna lose to lucky stuff to any deck anyway, so definitely very annoying though, but good game. Our next game was against Harpie, and this looks like a promising hand. Unfortunately, we are going first, so it's a lot worse. Now, there's a good number of things you can do with this hand. There was a consideration of just normal summoning the Vodyanoy and Ange to set up the graph, but I decided to go for Vodyanoy here and activate its effect because I feel like I have a fairly good chance of drawing at least another Dark or Light Sea Serpent for Wrath here. So I bought like the Ange here, but unfortunately I don't draw anything, and so I just set and pause here. Now, I definitely set the wrong cards here. I was under the impression that they would have at least one back row for me to set, for me to destroy with the Ghost Cyclone. So I chose to set the other trap to just set them up in case. But that ended up being the wrong play, as you'll see later on. They'll start their turn here, they'll normal summon the Legend Magician here, they'll check the top 3. And they'll find a vanilla Harpie lady that's probably going to be good for them for later. Then I'll tribute summon their guys here, activate Spark, and go to battle, swing in, deal a lot of damage, and pass back to us. And you can see that they did not end on any back rolls, which means that I cannot activate any of my spells here, because they are all clogged by my inactive spell and my 2 traps that I can't activate. This game definitely could have gone better if I had the ability to activate the Cat-trois Choice to maybe find something, or the Grand Stream if I had actually joined any high levels. Although this hand is terrible anyway, like I wouldn't be able to do much with this hand, and looking at the top 3 cards of my deck, I wouldn't be finding much anyway, so like I think the best play in hindsight would have just been to normal the Vodyanoy and Ange to set up Wrath. Would have been a good bit better, but alas, that game's over already. But yeah, that's just like unfortunate. There's a good number of Sea Serpents in my deck. I felt like I had a pretty good chance of at least finding something, but I guess sometimes it's worth not taking the risk if there is the possibility of it going very wrong. And I guess that's a good lesson to take away from this. But whatever the case, I lose this game because of it. And game 2 here, we also don't draw a very good hand. Sometimes it just happens like this. You just don't draw well. We just set 2 piles, not much you can do here. Hopefully we can find like a Bat Eel or something to cycle everything. Contrary to our hand, their hand is pretty good here. They go dealer here to cycle, and then they tribute summon some guys here, go to battle phase, swing in for 4800. And I do need a pretty good hand here to stabilize you, and let's see what we get. Maybe. Cat-trois Choice here, move 3. Darkglow is pretty good here at least. We can go for the Darkglow to wipe the board so that we don't immediately die, and we need to find at least a low level. It didn't go well for us last time, but maybe we can find at least one here this time. No? Okay. We found another Go Cyclone, which is not able to draw the card anymore, because we will have 4 monsters in grave next turn. We'll just swing for 800 and pass, hopefully don't find anything particularly good. They go for the Legend Magician here, they check off 3. They send a Lumiere, the Barrier Statue that works too. They can summon that back with Legend Strike later on. And they go again, send a Harpie, normal summon, set. Also notably, they have Icarus attack now, which is not good. But leaving us 500, they pass back. And this side is actually not bad. I was definitely getting a bit tilted here. I should have activated the Go Cyclone first, and then fire off the Vanishing Torrent, so that I clear both of these back rows here, and it definitely ends up mattering here. We go for the Bat Eel here, check the 2 cards, and then we go for Vanishing Torrent. We end up blowing the Icarus attack, which is pretty good, and we special summon the Kraken, left Kraken using the Grand Extreme. We do it like this so that we can set up the Wrath of Abyss. Yes, there are a lot of normal summons that do threaten lethal now. However, this does let us clear 2 monsters, and the gamble here is that they might only have one way to kill us through this Bat Eel, and whatever way they have, we can use Wrath of Abyss to threaten that. Unfortunately, because we didn't destroy this last back row, they end up being able to just use Darkglow anyway, which neutralizes the Wrath of Abyss, which you'll see. I think they'll activate Legend Magician here just to be efficient, just in case it actually ends up mattering. Yeah, they go for Darkglow here, they go for double Go Cyclone to wipe both back rows if they were actually meaningful. The special normal Barrier Statue go to battle Legends like the end of the game. Could have gone differently if I had just like the Darkglow with the Go Cyclone. And you can see here, like, they didn't have a way of beating the Wrath of Abyss, right? Like, it definitely matters here, because they wouldn't be able to activate Go Cyclone because they still have a monster on board, and the only monster that was threatened lethal here is the Lumiere, which they had a normal summon, which would immediately run into the Wrath of Abyss. So that was definitely, things could have definitely gone differently if I actually focused a bit more, but yeah, that's the game's over already. And this does knock me down to losers round, which we will be taking a look at shortly. The losers round, because of my standing in the tournament, we only need to play 1 round of losers before we go back to the grand finals. So to get back to that spot, I need to play against Reptile. Reptile is we played against Reptile earlier in the tournament, and it's a fine deck. I think it has a pretty decent chance. They have some pretty interesting decks in this deck, like Seal Array and Game Board. Let's see how it goes with them. They start with the miscast here to mill 3. They find the mistake on the top and check out 3, and find they have targets, but they choose to not add anything so that they can still draw 5 later on. Although I feel like I would have just added one of them, like added the miscast in case your deck says shuffle. And then they just oh no, they go for the Legend Magician also because they don't want to draw any of those. Which I think is interesting, because I feel like I would have wanted to draw into the miscast later on like the follow-up turn, and they just choose to set everything afterwards. Now I feel like they should have just set these, like, there wasn't a guarantee they would have found tribute monster to tribute over the miscast. So if things go wrong, which statistically it should, then you will be leaving at 300 attack body on board, which is not great. So I would have just not taken a risk, I would just set and pass. No reason to bleed damage like this, for no reason. What it does allow us to do is, and our hand is like pretty good here, honestly. We go for the Ghost Cyclone here, we hit a back row withdraw, we go for the Vodyanoy here, then go for the Vanishing. We can't go for the Cat-trois to add back the Ghost Cyclone while also getting the draw for Vodyanoy, and I really do want the draw for Vodyanoy over the Ghost Cyclone pop, because I can use the Vanishing to do that anyway. And we go for the Vodyanoy here, we bought the Ange draw 2, we go for the Reborn here, and we do this because it might be a good target for us to add back with the Cat-trois Choice later on. We special summon the Healer because there's nothing else to add back. Then we Cat-trois Choice here and we mill 3. And we don't mill anything good to Reborn back, so we just go for Vanishing Torrent here. You could add back Liem if you want another blocker, but there's no reason to do that. And Reborn still doesn't have anything good to hit, so we just add the Vanishing to make sure we can play around everything. And then we use the Healer to shuffle back the Cat-trois Choice to get 1000. And then set 2, go to battle phase, swing over all the monsters that have actual effects, and then pass back to them. And they draw, they can work with this. Legend Strike here special summons the Magician, pops the back row, hits a Ghost Cyclone, which is pretty good for them, because I would have been able to get the draw of it, if they did not clear it. They send, the mislead here, they go for Sea Dragon Bat after attributing over the cards they want to put back. To just see the Grand Stream. Now, because we didn't mill one Grand Stream off of the Cat-trois Choice, they do get to pop this for free, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Would have been really nice to have though. Unfortunately, they do not have another low level. If they had another low level, they would have been able to draw a card of Purity, which would have been able to, well, draw a card obviously, but they would have been able to set the lurker also, which would have been pretty good. But unfortunately, the hand is a bit weaker than that, so they only can debuff the healer and then go to battle, swing for damage and pass back to us here. And let's see what we draw here, and that's good enough. We go for the Vodyanoy, then we go for Vanishing Torrent to pop the back row, go for the effect here to draw 1, go for the Angler here to mill 1, ignore the Angler for a second. We had 1, 2, we have 2 Sea Serpents in grave and then 2 on board. So if we tribute the Poseidra, we wouldn't have been able to activate the effect. So we needed to use Angler here to mill 1 to try to find another Sea Serpent, which we end up finding. So we get to go for the Poseidra, activate the effect, pop the Purity, and then all of a sudden Sea Dragon Bat go to battle phase, just swing in. You need to be really mindful of what your graveyard in this deck. Sometimes you need to like micromanage it like that. They draw a pretty good hand actually. They go for the mistake here, they could check out 3. And they find the miscast here. Unfortunately, if they had found that in a different order, they would have been able to get more value, but as it stands, they only get to go for it as simply a low-level Reptile. They go for the Legend Magician here to shuffle the deck mostly, so that their mislead could potentially have better targets here. And they find another low-level here, which is pretty good. Then they go Noble Summon twice and activate the effect, and special summon 2 Purities here, and draw 2 cards over. They choose to send away the lurker here, which is interesting. I feel like I would have wanted to keep it to make sure that I had the way to make sure that like their follow up, they don't follow up with like powerful back row to like potentially punish us. And this is not lethal anyway, so like I feel like it would have been better to do it like that. Anyway, they debuff us a bunch to go to battle phase and for a bunch of damage and leave us on 100. Maybe they thought it wasn't lethal actually because it was really close. So they didn't think that keeping the lurker would matter anyway. But optimally, you would keep the lurker over the miscaster to make sure they had the out for the back row later on. And it definitely really mattered here because we do end up drawing Cylinder here, which is insane. And would be something that they would be able to play around if they still had the lurker, but because they sent it away, they did not. So you can see they're trying to find it again with the ship. They're drawing 1, and they do find at least a Spy Observatory, which is back removal. They missed the Cylinder, but regardless, it's still not threatening me. It's still not allowing them to kill me, right? They still need to swing 3 times into our bodies, and they don't get to do any damage here. I choose to use Cylinder here. No reason not to. I don't think they have anything bigger. They could have Cali, but I feel like keeping the Ange on just in case is also important. Might matter in terms of having tribute for them, which actually does matter here. Go for the Ange. discard 1, draw 1, and we join another Kraken, but it doesn't matter. We have trigger summoning Kraken, activating its effect to shuffle, and then debuffing the mystery is enough damage to go for a lead, which is exactly what I do. I think there are definitely a lot of things that they could have done, but I did draw pretty well overall. I was able to have a really strong opening hand, blow up all their back row, that was pretty good. But there were definitely some lines that they could have taken that would have prevented me from winning this game. But let's move on to the next game. Game 2 here, they go first again. They go for the mislead here. I think this is fine. Leading with the mislead. Just because leaving a 1300 attacker on board is a lot better than leaving a 300 attacker on board. Especially because they're not, they're going for Legend Magician also, so they're gonna really go in here. And I don't think they want to draw into 2 Spider Observatories anyway, so I think that's a fine shuffle here. They just sent a positive. And they did draw the Cylinder here, but it doesn't matter because we had the Vanishing Torrent, which is pretty nice. We go for the Vodyanoy, activate the Vanishing Torrent. We choose the bot deck the Poseidra here. We don't need the beater at this point, or we don't need the 2-3 beater because the board is pretty weak. So just bot deck it, see what else we can draw. Just drawing another low level is pretty good. We get to fill up board here. Activate the Raiza, spin. We choose to spin the Legend Magician so that they don't immediately have it in the graveyard for Legend Strike. So they need to find a tribute monster to tribute over the Legend Magician here if they want to activate Strike, which maybe matters. And then we just set go to battle, swing in, and power strike at them. Not a very complicated turn here. And they draw here. They find the Graceful, which is really strong. So they are able to discard the Magician for Strike anyway if they wanted to. They should discard 2 ships, makes sense. They don't really have any ways to actually use it, but they go for the Legend Magician here, check top 3, see if they want to send anything. They choose to send the Mislead here. Then they go for the Healer, activate Healer to shuffle back to Graceful, get 1000. And they have to use the Sealer right here to beat over the Raiza, which is very funny. Gotta make do with what you can. They choose to clear everything, which I think is a respectable choice. Just making sure I have as little resources as possible, and also the Ghost Control is not live, unfortunately. But we go to for the Vodyanoy here, we walk deck the Ange and draw 1, then we go join another screen. Then we use that here to reveal 1, and then we draw 1. What did I... I drew another Vanishing Torrent, so I just bought deck the other Vanishing Torrent. Fantastic draws in it. Activate the Kraken here, shuffle some cards here. Debuff their Healer, go to battle phase, swing over that, and the mismatch here. I choose to do that. Why did I do that? Oh yeah. Because the Mirage Dragon wasn't active for me anyway, in the sense that it didn't matter because I didn't have any battle traps. Yes, it telegraphs that I don't have battle traps, but I think the alternative for them, they could mill a level 7 Reptile for this, and they could activate it, and they could really deal a lot of damage. So I was worried about that outcome as opposed to them knowing that I don't have any back row. I think this is a lot better than potentially having them high roll into more beaters, which is not great for us. And they end up drawing nothing too particularly fantastic here. They do draw another one of these mismatches here. They add back the Purity, which is pretty good for them. They tribute summon some guys here, Purity draw a card. They draw a Spider Observatory off the top, which is pretty good. Get to pop it back, or they find the Ghost Cyclone here, which is pretty strong. And then they choose to keep the Mystery in hand, which I think is fair. I think it's fair, given that this does do more damage. And it's not like you need to play around Scat Thief anyway because you set the Mirage Dragon on the board. And theoretically, if I have like 2 monster pops, it's better to keep more monsters on board, I guess. But yeah, I think it's fair to keep the Mystery on board, in hand rather. They're just throwing in a bunch of damage pass back here. We have the Vanishing Torrent out the back row anyway, so it's not like it matters. That Ghost Cyclone is pretty good though. We go for the Ghost Cyclone given that we draw it. Then we go for the Dark Hole. And unfortunately, we don't have a way of winning the game from this point. We just go for the Grand Stream, especially summoning the Kraken, shuffling some cards back. Mostly they're like Legend Strike targets. We don't want them to. We basically don't want them to draw the Reptiles, and we want them to draw the generic. Reptiles are at their best when they're drawing their in-engine cards mostly. We just said we go to battle. We don't need to commit an 800 attack body that would potentially lose us the game. Just swing in the pass back. And they draw the Abysskite anyway, great. They mill 3, and they whiff, which is a huge deal though. That's very unfortunate for them. They could have added back previously. I could have, the mistake rather, I could have gotten a lot of just drawing here. But unfortunately that doesn't happen. They go just tribute summon, activate the mislead here, flip a card face up, and they choose to interestingly they choose to keep did they have no, they actually didn't have enough tribute material. Yeah, they didn't have enough material for the mystery anyway, because they needed one more card in hand, yeah. So okay, no, then this is fine. If they had not missed the miscast, then they would have been able to actually make a pretty strong board and probably killed us from this position. But unfortunately, they had some pretty bad builds here, so they weren't able to do that. They do end up crashing here, just to make sure I don't just immediately debuff and like, go for lethal. But we'll draw here. We go for the Angler here to add back the Kraken here, and that's just the end of the game. We choose some Kraken, debuff by 1200, well, we debuff 1500. And that's just the end of the game. I know that. Why did it? The Eel will replay something bugs like that, but yes. We end up just winning with the Kraken here. And this is the Grand Finals here. Now, double elimination normally would do what's called a bracket reset for the Grand Finals, but for this server, they chose to do it as the best of 5 instead, which I think is fair. So we will have up to 5 games here to show off. And our opening hand is pretty good. But they're going first. They just tribute summon the Harpie Lady set 3 pass. Their opener is kind of cracked also, having Darkglow plus Pureglass plus Spark setup is insane. And let's see what we draw though. Vodyanoy is pretty good. Vodyanoy we can use to bot deck. We'll first use Vanishing Torrent for some reason on traditional attack main. Hitting Darkglow is pretty good. After Vodyanoy here, we choose to bot deck the Liem here because we want to be tribute something to the Pureglass Spears. And we find the Cat-trois off the top, which is very strong here. We mill 3. And unfortunately, I was thinking about adding Apsaras here, but then I remember that I have this berry statue is not a Sea Serpent, so we can't actually pop the monster here. So the only thing we can actually add back here is the Vanishing Torrent, because Ghost Cyclone is not activatable in this position. So we just do that to just pop more macro, which is pretty good because we end up popping the Spark here. Then we go with Kraken, activate the Kraken effect to make sure that the non-Sea Serpent is out of the graveyard here. Debuff their card, go to battle, Fiend, pass back to them. Pretty slow turn, but it is what it is. They have a pretty good set of draws here. They just normal summon their hand here. And they didn't even need the full dress here. This Lady 1 will be enough to beat over the Kraken here. They equip, they go to battle, and swing for and deal a bunch of damage here and bounce back. This is the situation where I feel like I wish I would have Deepsea Hunter. But I did keep it out of my main deck to have better draws for other matchups. So that was the gap, that was the trade-off that I ended up doing. So like, you know, makes sense that I went this way. That's a pretty good draw though. We go for the Cat-trois here, we mill 3, and we could have added back the we could have added back the Reborn here, which would have been pretty good. But I ended up going for the Ghost Cyclone here to pop the full dress here. And that's because we would not have been able to beat over this specific Harpie Lady because, with the full dress equipped. Without removing it from the back row here. So we do that and we draw 1. We do have 2 draws here to find something, so I don't think it's too bad to gamble on maybe potentially not drawing a tribute monster here. I think it's pretty likely that we find at least 1, and we do at least find 1. Then we go for the Void here to bot deck Pureglass Spears, draw 1. And then we got to activate the Apsaras here to special summon the Sea Dragon Bat, pop their card here, and because we're unable to beat over the other Harpie Lady, we just set the Angler, go to battle here, swing in and pass back, just do a little bit of trade damage here. And they draw the color here to disable that back to full dress here, which is pretty scary because they are able to pierce over this if it were for the fact that we had the cylinder. So they just tribute summon. They go for the strike here. Now unfortunately, because they did not find the Legend Magician early enough, they aren't able to pop this. So they will be succumbing to the most magical of cylinders here. Once they go into battle, we do 32 to them, but they are still able to beat over the Apsaras and the Sea Dragon Bat, which is pretty good. And we still have the Angler for next turn. We don't have any maximum pieces in grave anymore because we shuffled them back. But maybe even high roll, we can like maybe mill 1 off the top, maybe, who knows. Cat-trois is a pretty good start though. Now yes, there wasn't a way to guarantee it here, and I could have theoretically kept it for next turn, but I felt like I'm either hitting the Cat-trois Choice and high rolling them, or I am milling a maximum piece for the Angler. I felt like either of those were pretty good. But we don't end up finding either of those, so we just go for Raiza here, spin this one because it breaks the full dress as well, and then we go to battle, and we swing over the middle Harpie lady to which they activate Scatter, which is unfortunate. And they find, they literally draw 3 cards and then they find the maximum off card, which is insane. They choose to discard the vanilla here because obviously the max, you don't want to be discarding the maximum when you have the entire maximum in hand. The maximum summon here, activate effect, burn for 500, gain 500, and go to, they don't have the pure still here, the full dress, so they don't kill us. But next turn they are just able to shuffle back 2 wins and then do 500 and then end the game that way. Or they would have, if we remember that part of the effect actually matters. You can see here they draw the card, they set, they go to battle, they don't even use the effect here. They could have killed us here, would have been the end of the game. But alas, this is part of skill to remember that your cards have effects. So it is what it is, they just swing here and toss back. And you know, we still need to beat over this 3400 Peter. And we do need some very specific cards here to do that. We need Pureglass is like the best way of doing that. And we still need to beat past the back row, which they may have. In this case, they have a Crisis Order. If we drew Pureglass, it wouldn't matter because we had the Grand Stream. And speaking of the devil, and it shall appear. Pureglass Spears comes out, activate the effect, shuffle with the Grand Stream, normal summon Sea Dragon Bat. Now we don't technically have full knowledge with the back row here, but we decided we're too low anyway, so it's better to just try to go for lethal here. If they have a Legend Trap, I would have died anyway, so I might as well just special summon everything and try to go for lethal here. Use the Pureglass Spears to beat over the maximum here, and seeing that and the fact that they don't have any back row, they just surrender. Game 2 here, you can see I ordered into my Deepsea Hunter here, but they're going first to see what they have. They start with the Magician here, check top 3. And they send a Magician, they send a lady for later. No, some Bear Statue here, and that Bear Statue is the bane of my existence. This turn will end up being a lot better, would have ended up being a lot better if that Bear Statue is 1 or more. Now we use the Vodyanoy here to bot deck the Kraken here, which was admittedly correct. Because I draw 2 out of 2 Dream Hunter up top. Go for the Deepsea Hunter to send that Bear Statue face down. Thank God I had the Bear Statue, the VC for that, because otherwise we wouldn't have been doing too much this turn. We go for the Apsaras here to special summon the Deepsea Hunter again, just keeping a rotation for later Apsaras activations. We pop the Legend Magician here, then Cat-trois Choice. Well, 3 here, then we add the Pureglass to our hand. We didn't really have many options here. We could, theoretically, we could have gone for the Apsaras here to just get more bodies on board, but I felt like I wanted more damage here. So I ended up going for the Pureglass here, activating the effect, and went for piercing here. But I could have gone for the Apsaras and special summoned it back, while also getting the Sea Dragon Bat activation because I have enough low levels in grave, and also that will empty our grave for Ghost Cyclone later on. Yeah, maybe that was the better play in hindsight, but maybe that was the better play in hindsight actually. It was probably a stupid play. But whatever the case, it goes back to them. They go for Tribute Summons here, activate Star Goblin, Special Summon, Noble Harpie Lady, activate Spark here. I would have lost my entire board anyway because they opted Spark here, but at least I would have taken a bit less damage here. They go to battle, they swing in, and they pass back here. We have a Kraken hand, which isn't very good, but it's at least better than nothing. We go for Vanishing Torrent here to pop the macro here, go to Angler here to mill 1, adding the Poseidra back to our hand, which we will use this effect on the middle Harpie ladies. Then we will set a Vodyanoy, go to battle, walk over the left ladies, I think this is, yeah, and pass back from them. And they draw the Regina out top, which is very strong here because they have the vanilla from the previous turn here, so they just discard and add. Then they tribute summon some guys here, and then activate the effect, boost over the Poseidra, and then pass back to us after swinging in. And this is definitely a very precarious position here. And we would have definitely had a lot more leeway if we had the additional Sea Dragon on board. And maybe our draws would have been different also, but alas, let's see what we draw here. That's pretty good, you know, that's pretty good. We go for the Ghost Cyclone first, obviously, we draw a card. Then we go for the Darkglow here to blow them up. Normal summon the Raiza, activate the prison, and we choose to keep the Ange in hand in case they are in a situation where they go Harpie plus equip, because that would just kill us. Although if they have Harpie Lady plus equip, although they would have, if they had like ladies plus equip, I would die anyway. So maybe it was better to set the Ange, which technically would make us more vulnerable to the piercing equip, but if they just had enough beaters in general, they would have killed us anyway. Well, we'll see. We'll see what they have here. And they don't find anything here because of our prison, so they just set the pause. And we're still trying to find something here. Now, if I had set this, I would have joined the ground. Okay, that didn't matter. It would have fulfilled up our whole background, I guess. But in the grand scheme of things, it didn't matter. We go for the Ange to draw 1, which didn't matter also. Then we go for the prison here, and we go to battle. We'll swing in and pause. We choose to not swing the Ange just in case like that would have bled us extra damage here. Actually, you know what the correct play would have been? It would have been to not swing here, because I know that they're on Legend Strike, and Legend Strike is their best way to deal with the prison island. And Startup Goblin is also something that would have outed it, but it would have been specifically one of the 3 set cards. So yeah, it was definitely a misplay to swing here. I should have just waited for something like a Pureglass to start swinging. But alas, they find Legend Strike, they special summon it, well actually it didn't matter, because they found the Maximum again somehow, and this time, it's actually lethal. And it would have been lethal anyway, even if I didn't have this Ange attack, because they deal 1000, they gain 500 and they burn for 500, which is, and hitting all the Raiza here, it's exact lethal, total of 2000 damage. So it didn't matter here. But ultimately, I should not have given them the free slot for Legend Mission. That was a mistake. And one of the cases is swinging for lethal here. Game 3 here. Let's see what we draw. We draw for, we go for Bat Eel, just cycle. We draw into the Liem here, which I want to keep the Ange in deck here because it's just better to draw into. The Liem is just better out of the deck at this point. And we just normal summon and pass back. Which normally I would just tribute set here because there's always the possibility in the back of your mind that it's like Pureglass. But I reviewed it off the Bat Eel, so they know it has low defense, so I'd rather just normal summon it. And they still need a specific set of cards here to actually out it, which they do have if they draw a maximum piece off the top here, which they did. Well, maybe Ghost Cyclone will pop it back for real, and unfortunately they don't draw anything, so they just set the pause. We draw Angler here. Our card grave is 2 Sea Serpents. Discarding the Apsaras here is another one, which guarantees that Poseidra is live here, and that's exactly what we do. We use the Poseidra effect to put back all of those and pop back pop a monster rather. And we do this just so that we can just get in some damage. I want to make sure I can get in damage, because sometimes you will struggle to get in a big burst of damage. So like you really need to play this game of attrition, where you really need to make sure you can get as much damage as possible, as often as possible, really. So go to battle here. We gamble a little bit on attacking with the Sea Dragon Bat Eel, just so that I can get additional 1000 damage. Again, you want to get as much damage as possible, so we took the risk here. And it paid off here. We hit into something that has too little defense for the Sea Dragon, so we just get it for 300 and pop back with them. And I don't know why they signed it to Lumières. I could have mentioned this earlier, but it's a weird choice to sign it to Lumières when I have level 10 pieces in my deck that you can't interact with. So they just special summon it as a defender and just pass back to us. And we're in a situation again where we need to just out their defenders here. We didn't draw anything to do that though, so we just set our powerful traps here and pass back. And swing in, and they will activate the scat defensive result to sculpt the hand here. They find Raiza here, which is really strong. But this Darkglow is also pretty good here, which is insane because it turns off our Raptor's Abyss, but we do still have the Mirror Force here, which is pretty good. Go for Kala here, they reset the equip. Go for the Legend Magician here just to send that amazing dealer to the grave. Then they choose summon the guys here, use Raiza here to maybe hit something, hit the Wrath. Which doesn't matter. We choose to activate the Mirror Force here. On the off chance that we high roll into another Sea Serpent, which might have been lethal. Well, I needed specifically Pureglass here, but I wanted to take that risk here. And also I didn't want to take that damage. Because they could have... I wanted to play a little more fast and loose with my sharks because they are running a triangle spot. And there's always the possibility that Mirror Force doesn't get another chance to be activated on future turns because they have a lot of ways of dealing with back row, so I chose to just spend it here on the off chance I drew Pureglass on the top here. And I did not, but I do find the Cat-trois Choice here, which maybe goes into it. That's a lot better though. Oh, it's not life. I thought it was life. No, it wasn't life, but it did mill 2 Sea Serpents here, which is enough for the Poseidra here to pop their monster here and get in front of 2300, which is pretty good. We also get to shuffle back some of their dirt draws here, which is very strong. And unfortunately, we don't have any traps at life here, but it is still a very commanding position to be in. We have an immense life point lead here and 2 Grand Extremes of the follow-up and also Wrath of Abyss for the follow-up as well. They draw here pretty good actually. They just tribute summon the guys here, use a Spark here for the battle phase, and swing in. For some reason they choose to use both spots here. Maybe they're also on the same. They're also thinking that we might have too many backroom pops for it to matter here. But I think keeping the Spark here for future turns is a lot better than just spending it willy-nilly. I still need to draw the back removal here. And while I do have a lot of it, I think that it's a well worth risk here to take. And they equip, they just like try to get it as much damage as possible, I suppose is the line of thinking here, because if I don't deal with this Harpie ladies, I will just die next turn due to the piercing. So we'll see what we draw here, and that's not particularly good. We go for the Grand Extreme here. We have to do this because we do not have a space to activate any of our spells here. We go for the Angler here. We shuffle some cards back, we go for the Cat-trois Choice here to mill, and we just need to mill one less Sea Serpent and we would have been able to add back something, like a Mirror Force or a Prism. That would have been pretty good too. But unfortunately we don't, we mill too many, so we just go for the Raiza here, spin this Harpie ladies, and we just set, we go to battle, we swing in here. And funnily enough, them not setting the Spark meant that I have one dot in my hand. And that maybe would have changed the outcome a little bit if I had one more card to draw. They just Maximum Summon. Normally Harpie doesn't do this. I don't understand how they just drew the Maximum 3 in 3 games in a row even. They Maximum Summon here, and funnily it doesn't win the game because I have only one monster on board. And we have the Darkglow that we drew from the previous turn. So we don't draw a great hand, but because of the Darkglow and the fact that they only have 3100 life points, because of the fact that we were rushing to get in the damage earlier on, it paid off here, and we get to just normal summon 3 guys here, go to battle phase, and swing in to deal that 3000 damage for lethal. And it's time for game 4 here, and we get to go second. Great. They go here, they go for the Legend Magician here, change up 3. And they choose to send a Legend Magician here, then they choose summon some guys here, activate, they choose to not activate a full dress, which is interesting. Because I guess that doesn't, no, it matters if I draw like Kraken, I would still be able to beat over one of the Harpie, although I guess I would just debuff the one that has the equip, so I guess it's better to keep the equipment rotation for next turn. Whatever the case, we go for the Ghost Cyclone to pop it, so it doesn't matter anyway. Draw a card, they go with Vodyanoy here, to Cyclone and draw, go for the Grand Extreme here. And this is a just cracked start here. We go for the Grand Extreme here first, before using the Cat-trois Choice, so that we have it as an option to add it back off of the choice here. And because we'll go to Great here. We'll go for the mill 3, and we don't really have many good options here. We just go for the Grand Extreme here just for next turn here, which admittedly is a pretty strong option. Go for the Deepsea Hunter first to board deck their to flip down their ladies here, then we spin this lady to the top of the deck. We don't want to be drawing this because this allows them to beat over any of our beaters here. And that this lady specifically that is immune to monster effects, while it is annoying, it's not like that big of a deal compared to the more immediate threat that is a 2600 beater. So we do that, we go to battle phase, and we do 47 heal, which is the big top damage, and then we pass back to them. With this Grand Stream from that, the Cat-trois Choice is going to be pretty good heal for sure. And they draw Darkglow here, which is pretty good obviously, and they do immediately fire it off, but they don't have much follow-up afterwards. If there's something like an Eel, which is not running here, then they would have been able to do a lot of nasty stuff, but they just normal summon here, go to battle phase and swing in here. Now they could have sent everything out from the hand to the deck, or rather they could have sent these to the graveyard by just tree rooting. But they are one piece off of the maximum, so I guess that was they wanted to take that gamble here and maybe find the maximum, which would have been insane if they found it, which 4 games in a row as Harpie, that's insane. But whatever the case here, this is still a pretty weak start here, so we just go for the Grand Darkglow here to white. Go for the Grand Extreme here, special summon, the Pureglass here, activate Pureglass here, flip to attack, and that is the end of the game. Now, I did not need the Darkglow. I could have special summoned the Poseidra here, activated its effect to bot deck my 5Cs, my entire graveyard here, and then activated Cat-trois Choice here to get back the Grand Extreme to special summon the Pureglass Spears, or can I can have it, right? I can have the Pureglass Grand Extreme for the Pureglass Spears, and then that would have been lethal also. The Poseidra was not being able to pop the ladies, is still able to empty out graveyard, so that's an important thing, a very key thing that you can take note of. But yeah, I did not need that, but it definitely helped make things a lot easier. So after we do that, we just swing in, and that's the end of the game, and I have won this match 3-1, and that is the end of the tournament with me getting first place. And now for the final thoughts. I did win the tournament, that was great. Despite winning, there are still some things I need to bring up. Winning doesn't mean that your deck is perfect. Winning means that you succeeded, but that doesn't mean that your deck could be improved on. There are a lot of factors, and there are still a lot of learning opportunities within the games themselves and after the whole tournament. I guess I'll just talk about what things I would change. I already talked about the Cylinder versus Mirror Force thing in the beginning, but I'm not gonna talk about that one again. I'm gonna try out the Kraken, the right Kraken, like more Bat Eel build more. I think that's an interesting way to bring the deck. But the few times I tried it out a little bit, it didn't feel that great, which is why I'm stuck on this build. But I'll try it out more and see what I think about it in the future. I'm not really too confident in that though. I think in the future, I think this will be out of the side deck and I put in some other traps or more Harpie hate even. So yeah, but just in general on the deck itself, I think in general I'm quite happy with it. I think that I wouldn't change too much about the deck. I would maybe consider playing a more focused tribute lineup. Maybe more Apsaras, maybe more Pureglass. No, definitely not more Pureglass. I think more Pureglass wouldn't be good because it is only good in conjunction with the Grand Extreme. So you need like it's a very piece relying setup, and I would rather have cards that are better individually, like Apsaras, like Poseidra, and to an extent Kraken. Although I think Kraken was kind of a weak link. Though not really. That's the problem with this. Like I feel like all of these are equally important. To an extent, they are all good tools in a variety of situations. And certain situations, I would be happy to have a certain one of these accessible to me, as opposed to a specific one. But if I were to choose a specific one to run 3 of, maybe Apsaras, because Apsaras, like its highest value is very strong. So I think that's maybe something that you can consider when you try this for yourself. Other things is like you can maybe not play Liem in the main deck. Maybe you can play Deepsea in the main deck, just to be more prepared against Harpie matchup. The reason why I'm not on in the main deck because I wasn't expecting Harpie, but I did end up playing against more Harpie. I played against Harpie more times than Wonder, which is funny. But maybe I should have expected that because that server was a bit more on the casual side. It's weird to explain because like yeah, it is a bigger event than most other Discord tournaments that you'll see generally, I think. But that means there will be more players who are just playing to have fun, not necessarily trying to sweat and not necessarily trying to win, or not necessarily trying to 100% focus, zero in on winning. So it is technically an easier event to win than maybe a smaller one with more serious players. But you are still playing a lot of games. You are still playing a lot of games. You cannot rely on a deck that is just able to cheese out wins to win that extended period, that like longer number of rounds. So in that sense, I think that is a fairly competent event overall. But a lot of people in that server don't generally like to play the like cream of the crop meta, like Wonder and Harpie and stuff like that. So I think that I think it's still like weird. Like you can definitely take the risk of not preparing as much for those decks, but I think it's still important to prep against those decks, because there will be some people who will bring those decks regardless, and you will probably see them at the top tables. So you will still need to prepare for those decks, which is why I'm on this much Wonder Hate for that matchup, because that is the matchup that I was worried about the most, even if I didn't think that too many people would bring it to the tournament. What else is there? I don't think there's much else. I think that I guess on an overall note for this deck, I think one thing I will say about this deck is that it still has that problem of not necessarily being able to close out games fast enough sometimes. Yes, Cat-trois helps with getting your multi-card explosive set up correctly. But sometimes if you don't have this, sometimes you will have the same problem that Sea Serpent Midrange used to have in the past, where it sometimes takes a bit to actually close out the game. And sometimes that's a problem, and some of those games that we showed off definitely showed off that problem. But I think overall this deck is a pretty sizable improvement from the previous format. Cat-trois Choice is a very powerful card, and despite the fact that we are running it in a deck that is taking advantage of it the most, I believe that this card will be seeing play in other decks just as a mill 3 with a potential upside. It is just a very powerful card, and I think the games that we've shown show that off pretty well. And yes, those games showed off this card in a deck where it is deliberately trying to bring out its fullest potential as much as possible. I think that even if in its in a vacuum, this card is very powerful. Even if you're not actively trying to set up its additional effect, I think it is a very powerful card. And we'll probably see those in future videos, because I do have other decks that I need to playtest, and I can't just play Sea Serpent for the rest of my life, unfortunately. This deck is very fun though. That's another thing I guess I have to talk about. Deck is really fun. It is the type of deck that I like, that like has a lot of skill expression, has a lot of different optimizations that you can do during your turn, and that's why I really like this deck. If you are a fan of that type of methodical kind of almost attrition-based game plan, then you would really like this deck. It's not fully an attrition-based deck, because you do have some really high roll like explode your opponent plays, but those are not as common as the more plotting kind of control the board state, control what's in your graveyard, that kind of thing. And it is a seemingly easy deck to understand. I think that there are a lot of things that you can get wrong when actually playing this deck. It is a lot more. There are some nuances that you may not pick up upon first playing the deck, is what I will say, and that's why I really enjoy it. It is definitely a very fun deck to pick up, and a very fun deck to play. That'll be it for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you have any other suggestions or video ideas, I will probably not listen to those. I can't say that. Okay. Express your thoughts in the comments below for algorithmic purposes. and do other YouTube stuff like liking the video, subscribing to the channel, doing cool things, being cool. Yeah, great. Regardless, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.